What is happening, everyone? Welcome back to G-Ball Vision. Thank you for stopping in. Today, I have an extremely interesting knife for you guys to take a look at. Before we get started, double check and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I'd love to have you here. And before you head out, do me a huge favor. Hit that thumbs up button. I greatly appreciate it, everyone. It really helps push the videos out there so more people have a chance to check them out. Feel free to let me know what you're carrying in your pockets today as well down in the comments. I love hearing from you guys and what you have for your EDC. So, getting to the main squeeze here, we're taking a look at a Tempest Knives, and this is a pretty special knife. I've never checked this knife out before. I've never handled it. Secondly, this was the first knife that was bought for my fiance at Blade Show 2024, and it's been customized by KC, the designer at Tempest Knives. If you're not familiar, I'll link his channel down below, but I am sure you have heard of KC, Knives Fast, and Tempest Knives. But in the off chance that you haven't, I will have it linked down below. Great guy. Great getting to finally meet him in person, and this was the last one of these on the table. I don't know how many he brought with them, but I think it was a very limited number, just a couple, if that. But what we're looking at is I believe it was 2 models ago, I want to say. Was it 2? I think it was 2. This is the Microburst, and I think it was 2 models previous to what he's on now. And this is more of a mid-size knife. And just looking at this knife, never handling it before now, I could tell you that this is definitely derived for and was designed for utility type work. I think the blade shape really lends itself to that. It's not an overly big knife, it's not overly small, and because of this very generous 50-50 area here, you can choke right up behind that blade. It gives you that extra slot, so if you do have larger or, XL sized or larger hands, you're going to be able to fit on this knife pretty comfortably. Even in the standard grip here, I can still get all 4 on there. Now the pinky is off a little bit, but that's giving myself a little bit of room. But definitely in the choke up, I have a ton of room left over, which this is where, if you're making any cuts that really count, this is where you're going to be anyway, unless it's just a quick slice through tape or something. You're going to be up here anyway. So I think that's really nice, keeping the knife, a little bit smaller form factor, but there's still plenty of blade there and plenty of room for your hand on the knife itself. This one came coated. I believe he had a couple of different versions. Now, I believe these are out of stock, sadly, for new people, or just if you're not aware. Not every single knife everywhere under every company is always going to be in stock, and there may be videos that come out on some of them knives that aren't out yet. They're not in stock or back in stock yet. That just happens. So I hate to burst that bubble in your head where you think every knife should be available that you see. That's not the case. And in the case of this knife, might not be available, but I believe there will be more of these soon. Probably a tweaked version or a version 2, if you will. But I could see running it just like the way it is. No changes. I think it's really well done. Maybe if you wanted to change to like a carbon fiber or something like that and update the steel. But as far as the profile and the design, I think it sits pretty good. The detent is very, very nice on this knife. Nice and snappy. Reverse and thumb flick, very well done. Great placement on the studs. The closing action, I believe these are Kubey, and Kubey knows what they're doing with their detents and the action around the pivot. I've done a lot of talking to various designers that have gone through Kubey and basically have either not had to have any discussion with them about the detents and what strength they're at. Typically, what the prototypes come in and so on are exactly basically on point where you want them. Or B, basically just a conversation of saying, hey, you're going to keep the detents the way that they are, right, because that's where we want them, basically. And I think that's mainly, for the most part, the extent. So they do a really good job on their action department. And then the custom part of this knife is going to be these handle scales here. You can see that it's been darkened and then lightened, and it flows together very nicely. I believe KC did these himself. And I thought it was a cool knife. It's one I hadn't handled or checked out yet. And love KC. I have a couple of his knives. This is one I didn't have. Ashley really liked it and the colorway, so it was kind of a perfect storm. So this knife will be going back to her when I'm done with it here. This is her knife, but I definitely wanted to get a little something out on it because I have nothing, never touched this knife. So because we haven't had this knife on the channel, why don't we run a standard spec check on this thing? Now, we do have a wire pocket clip. These are very affordable knives. Not going to be much poking out of the pocket there, and it looks very clean. That's one thing wire pocket clips do well, is they carry pretty deep and they look very clean. There's not a lot going on there, and it's very inconspicuous for the most part. Unless you know. That's kind of the deal with certain pocket clips. If you know, then you know. But some people are absolutely clueless. Works very well as a wire pocket clip should be. It's going to be reversible for our lefty brothers out there. That looks pretty clean. Hard to have a filler tab or something of that nature with a wire clip. Could you have done something there? Maybe just 2 bars with this over top? You could have, but I think that looks clean. I think it looks fine. Minimal hardware, nice little pivot there with KC's typical emblem, which I hope he always keeps that. You do have the Tempest logo there on the front. Nice and small, out of the way. No problems whatsoever with that. The blade finish is great. If I didn't say, these are in 14C. Thought that was maybe a given if I didn't say it, but 14C for this guy, and Kubey is known to do 14C very well. Now, this is, for all intents and purposes, guys, brand new out of the box. It sat on KC's table for a little bit. I'm sure some people picked it up and flicked it. We picked it up Saturday morning, I believe. Or no, it was Friday. Friday, very early on in the show. Stopped at Devo and KC all in the same shot. Picked up a couple from both, and this was one of them. So there might not have been a whole lot of these, but Ashley has carried it a little bit, but this has not cut anything just yet. It's been carried quite a bit the last couple of days. We're about a week after Friday right now from Blade Show, the Friday of Blade Show. So it's been about a week and had a decent amount of carry time. But why don't we go ahead and we'll see what kind of edge Kubey and KC got on these things. So yippee skippy, I found a new telephone book. I love them and I hate them all at the same time. We have our first page out of our new book. We've been through 4 of them in the last couple months. So we definitely test a lot of edges on paper. But this stuff is so finicky and so shitty, and that has to do sometimes with me not hitting it just right. That's what she said. Or the edge is subpar. But in the case of this one, this has a really good edge. It's just a matter of me finding, where it likes to cut at. But seems to have a very good edge on it. I don't believe KC did anything with the blade as far as coating it or anything like that. I think this was a standard black blade. Not sure about the hardware either, but I do know the scales themselves were custom done by him. So technically I have a full custom from KC, which is awesome. You know, he had to take it apart, put it all back together after doing the die job. You know, or at least it's a full semi-custom. He didn't do, you know, the parts per se, but everything else, that was done by KC. So kudos to him. This is an awesome knife. For old time's sake, we got to give it a little test. And it looks like it's going to be good to go. Got to know the knife is safe for the misses. So it is holding lockup very well. There's no detent lash with this guy whatsoever. There is no pivot lash either, meaning the blade is not going to move back and forth there. Very, very nice detent. And then as far as on the open, just a very lackadaisical open. It is still locked up nice and tight, and there's no side to side or up and down. The best way, before I forget too as well, and if we open it nice and hard, there is definitely not going to be any play in there. We're looking at a fairly early lockup, but is not a cause for concern. As we just demonstrated, it is just fine. But it is looking at like 20 to 30%, and that's great. It's got positive lockup now and should maintain that positive lockout as it continues to move its way down the tang of the knife, which will take a very long time to do so. But a very solid job from KC and a very solid job from Kubey. I forget what I was going to say now. Oh, it had to do with the knives. If this is something you like, this knife, this design, this colorway, whatever it may be, you want to pick one of these up, the best way to keep your eye on that and to be able to pick one up is to just go follow Tempest Knives on Instagram and YouTube, and follow Knives Fast on Instagram and YouTube. And that will give you all the latest and greatest info, as well as signing up on his website. I believe he has a mailing list you can check out. I'll have all that stuff, as much of it as I can, linked down below. That way you can go support him. American guy, family, great dude, and a very key role in the knife community. So huge shout out to him for doing an excellent job and continuing to push the envelope. You guys will have to let me know, what do you think of the Tempest Knives pinion here? I have to say, it's really surprised me. I've always seen it in videos and some photos, and I thought it looked like a pretty good knife. But after getting it in hand, it's really, really changed my mind. Great size, plenty of room on there, and then just enough edge for my personal taste to do pretty much anything you're going to need to do. Everyone knows I do prefer a little bit larger knife, but this is definitely a great secondary candidate for me as far as like a backup carry or what have you as far as the size. But I could definitely see this being a lot of people's primary knife for its size. Going to be able to cover a lot of ground very well. You guys will have to let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. I always appreciate that, everyone. Really helps push the videos out there so more people have a chance to check them out. If you're new here, we release videos just like this one every day on all kinds of different EDC topics. Hit the subscribe button, ring the little bell. I'd love to have you here. Otherwise, I'll throw up a couple of new videos. Go check one of them out and have yourself an awesome day. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.